Ever dealt with a neighbor who thinks they run the whole street? The kind that enforces rules they barely understand, just to feel important? Meet Karen. And trust me, this showdown is one for the books. That's Karen. And after our little front yard showdown, I knew she wouldn't let this go. I just didn't expect her to strike back so soon. It was early the next morning when I heard it, a sharp, rapid knock at my door. Not the polite kind, the kind that said, "I'm here to ruin your day." I groaned, rubbing my eyes as I sat up. It was barely 8 a.m. Who the hell was knocking like a debt collector this early? Then I remembered. Karen. I threw on a hoodie and made my way to the front door. I didn't even have to look through the peephole. I already knew who it was. Sure enough, the moment I swung the door open, there she stood. Karen, clutching a thick blue binder, the infamous HOA rulebook. She had a smug little smile, like she had just solved the biggest case of her life. "Good morning," she chirped, way too cheerful for someone who had been my personal headache for the last 24 hours. I crossed my arms. "You're up early. Couldn't I sleep?" She ignored me. With a dramatic sigh, she flipped open the binder and began flipping through the pages. She was loving this. "Aha," she declared, stabbing a page with her finger. "Right here. Section 4B. No exterior decorations that disrupt neighborhood harmony. That includes flags." I blinked. "That's vague as hell." Karen's smile twitched. "It's clear enough. Your flag disrupts harmony." Karen, that rule could mean anything. By that logic, your flamingos and gnomes are disruptive too. Her nostrils flared. "That's different." "How?" She faltered, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then she straightened, composing herself. "Listen," she said, voice lowering. "I'm trying to help you. If you don't take it down, I'll have to report you to the HOA board. And trust me, they will fine you." I leaned against the doorframe, unbothered. "Cool. Let them." That wiped the smirk off her face. "Excuse me?" I shrugged. "Oh, wow, Karen. I didn't realize you moonlighted as a Supreme Court judge. If the HOA wants to fine me, they better come up with a real law. Otherwise, this is just you throwing a color-coordinated tantrum." Karen's face went from red to purple. "This is about rules, not personal feelings." I gave her a look. "Is it?" Her jaw clenched. She flipped her binder shut with a dramatic snap. "Fine," she hissed. "Have it your way." Then she spun on her heel and stormed off. The HOA binder clutched to her chest like a weapon. I watched her go, my stomach twisting with a mix of amusement and unease. I had won this round, but something told me she wasn't done. And I was right. Because Karen was about to take things to the next level. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But that was before the police showed up at my door. Before security cameras caught Karen in the act. Before she completely lost it. Just as I took my first sip of coffee, the peace shattered. Bam, bam, bam. This wasn't just knocking. This was knocking with a personal vendetta. I sighed. Here we go again. A loud, aggressive knock echoed through my house. Not the kind of knock that belonged to a friendly neighbor borrowing sugar. This was a knock with an agenda. I set my mug down with a sigh. I already knew who it was. I swung open the door, and there she stood. Karen. Still in her perfectly pressed blazer, still radiating that air of self-importance. But this time, she wasn't empty-handed. She had the HOA handbook, a thick blue binder clutched to her chest like it contained the laws of the universe. "Good morning," she said, a little too sweetly. I leaned against the doorframe. "Is it?" Her smile faltered. She glanced past me toward the front yard. My pride flag was still there, waving proudly in the breeze, her lips pressed into a thin line. I see you haven't removed it. Good observation, I said, crossing my arms. Karen exhaled sharply, flipping open the binder. I did some reading last night, she announced, thumbing through the pages until she found what she was looking for. And I found the rule you're breaking. I waited, unimpressed. She cleared her throat. Section 4B states that all exterior decorations must align with the neighborhood's aesthetic. Anything deemed disruptive or distracting must be removed. She snapped the binder shut with a dramatic flourish. Your flag falls under that category. I raised an eyebrow. And who decides what's disruptive? The HOA board, she said smugly. Great, I said. Then let them tell me that. Karen blinked. Excuse me. You're not the HOA board, Karen, I said, folding my arms. So unless I hear it directly from them, I'm not taking anything down. Her eyes twitched. She hadn't expected that. That's not how this works, she snapped. I'm bringing this to the board, and when they rule against you, you'll have no choice but to comply. Go for it, I said, smiling. Karen's eyes twitched. Her fingers clenched the binder so tightly I half expected it to explode into a cloud of HOA regulations. This, she seethed, is far from over. And with a dramatic pivot, she stormed off, practically leaving a trail of smoke behind her. And with that, she spun on her heel and stormed away, binder clutched like a weapon. I watched her go, shaking my head. Round 1. Me. But I knew Karen well enough to know this wasn't the end. She wasn't going to stop until she got her way. And something told me she was about to take things to the next level. The next afternoon, as I grabbed my mail, a thick white envelope with the HOA logo caught my eye. I ripped it open right there on the sidewalk. It was an official notice of violation. In short, Karen had wasted no time. She had reported me, and the HOA had sided with her, claiming my flag didn't align with the neighborhood aesthetic. They gave me 7 days to remove it, or face a $50 daily fine. I clenched my jaw, folding the letter. So this was her game. Across the street, I spotted Karen standing in her yard, pretending to water her plants. But she was watching me. She wanted to see me panic. She wanted me to crumble. Instead, I smiled, lifted my coffee cup in a mock toast, and walked back inside. Let her think she'd won. Because if Karen wanted to play dirty, I was about to play smarter. And trust me, this is only the beginning. If you think Karen's done, just wait. Part 2 is coming soon, and things are about to get even crazier. Stay tuned. Karen thought she had me backed into a corner. She thought the HOA's letter was the end of the fight. She was wrong. I sat down with the HOA rulebook, flipping through pages, searching for anything I could use. And after a little digging, I found exactly what I needed. Section 7A, a loophole. It stated that homeowners could put up temporary decorations for special occasions. And nowhere in the rules did it define what counted as a special occasion. I drafted a quick email to the HOA board, asking them to clarify the rule. If they agreed that homeowners could define their own celebrations, then my flag was completely allowed. And if they said no, that meant no Christmas lights, no Halloween decorations, no 4th of July flags. And I knew for a fact that Karen went all out for the holidays. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, smirking. Now the ball was in their court. The HOA board's response landed in my inbox faster than I expected. I skimmed the email, and as soon as I hit the key part, a huge grin spread across my face. In short, they had no rule against my flag. Section 7. A allowed decorations for personal celebrations, and they had no authority to dictate what counted as a special occasion. They had just handed me the perfect loophole. In writing. Karen was going to hate this. I printed the email and strolled over to her house. She was in her front yard, pretending to be busy with her garden, but I could tell from the way her eyes flicked up that she saw me coming. "Afternoon, Karen," I said casually. She stiffened. "What do you want?" I held out the printed email. "Just thought you'd like an update from your friends at the HOA." Her eyes darted across the page. With every second, her frown deepened. Her face twisted in frustration. Her jaw clenched so tightly I thought she might crack a tooth. This can't be right," she sputtered. "Looks pretty official to me," I said with a shrug. "Turns out, I'm well within my rights to keep my flag up." Her grip on the paper tightened. She was fuming. "Anyway," I added, stepping back toward my house, "I just wanted to keep you in the loop. Have a great day." I turned on my heel and walked away, my smile growing wider with every step. Karen had lost. Or so I thought. Because the next time she came back, she wouldn't just bring another complaint. She'd bring the police. I had barely finished my morning coffee when it happened. Loud knocks, sharp, demanding. The kind that made your stomach drop. I sighed, already knowing who was responsible. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. I opened the door, and sure enough, 2 police officers stood on my porch. Behind them, Karen hovered at the edge of my lawn, arms crossed, smirking. "Good morning, sir," one officer said, professional but firm. "We received a report about a disturbance regarding an unauthorized flag." I almost laughed. A disturbance? She really called 911 over a flag? I kept my expression neutral. A disturbance? I wasn't aware that fabric waving in the wind was an emergency. The second officer sighed, already looking bored with the situation. "The caller claims your flag violates HOA rules and you refuse to comply." I crossed my arms. "The HOA already confirmed I'm allowed to keep it. Would you like to see the email?" The first officer glanced back at Karen. "Ma'am, is there a safety concern here? Any actual laws being broken?" Karen's face turned red. "The HOA rules." "HOA rules aren't laws," the officer cut in. "We're here for legal matters, not neighborhood disputes." I bit back a grin. Even the cops were over her nonsense. Karen sputtered, pointing at my flag like it was a personal attack. "It's disruptive." The officer turned back to me. "Sir, unless your flag is violating a city ordinance, we have no authority here. Do you have any reason to believe it is?" I shrugged. "Nope, just a personal celebration." The second officer sighed. "Then we're done here." Karen's jaw dropped. "You're not going to do anything?" The first officer turned to her. "Ma'am, this is not a police matter. Please stop wasting emergency services on petty disputes." I swear I saw Karen's soul leave her body. She was humiliated, right there in front of me, in front of the cops, in front of the neighbors who had come outside to watch. The officers gave me a polite nod and left, while Karen stood there, fuming as the cops drove away. She had lost. Publicly. I leaned against my door frame, arms crossed. "Well, Karen, that didn't go the way you planned, huh?" She spun on her heel and stomped away, her face burning with humiliation. I smirked. Game, set, match. Or so I thought. Because Karen wasn't just angry, she was desperate. And desperate people? They make the worst decisions. And trust me, you won't believe what she does next. Part 2 is coming soon, and Karen's biggest mistake is just around the corner. Karen had just been humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood. The police had shut her down. The HOA had backed off. And my flag, still proudly waving in the wind. Any normal person would have let it go. But Karen? She wasn't normal. That night, just as I was settling in, my security camera app sent me a motion alert. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the live feed. And there she was. Karen, standing on my lawn, holding a pair of scissors. My blood ran cold. She wouldn't. I watched as she crept toward my flagpole, glancing around like some kind of suburban ninja. Her hand reached up, scissors aimed at the fabric. I bolted for the door. The second I yanked it open, Karen froze. "Are you serious right now?" I said, stepping outside. She spun toward me, wide-eyed like a deer in headlights. I was just... What? Just admiring the stitching? I snapped. Because it sure looks like you were about to vandalize my property. She stammered, still gripping the scissors. It's an unauthorized decoration. The rules don't give you the right to trespass, Karen. I pointed at the security camera mounted near my porch. And guess what? You're on video. Her face was drained of color. Now, I said, crossing my arms, I can call the police for real this time and let them deal with you, or you can get off my lawn before I press charges for trespassing and destruction of property. She dropped the scissors, turned, and ran, straight back to her house, slamming the door behind her. I shook my head, picking up the scissors. That was it. Karen had officially lost. But the best part? The entire thing was recorded. And I had a feeling the HOA board and the rest of the neighborhood would love to see it. By morning, the entire neighborhood knew what Karen had done. I made sure of it. I uploaded the security footage to our neighborhood Facebook group with a simple caption. Friendly reminder, HOA rules don't override trespassing laws. It didn't take long for the post to explode. Neighbors who had dealt with Karen's antics for years finally had proof of what she was really like. The comments flooded in, some laughing, some furious, all of them calling her out. She's lost her mind. This is beyond HOA business. This is illegal. I always knew she was petty, but this? Wow. Someone should report her to the actual HOA board for this. Oh, and the best part? The HOA board saw it. By noon, Karen's perfect little world came crashing down. A formal notice went out to the whole neighborhood. But this time, it wasn't for me. It was for her. Karen was officially under review for violating HOA policies on harassment and trespassing. The same HOA she used as a weapon against me had just turned against her. I sat on my porch, sipping my coffee, watching the show. Karen stormed outside, ripping her own HOA notice out of the mailbox. She read it, her face twisting in rage. Then her eyes flicked up and met mine. I smiled, waved. She huffed, crumpled the letter in her fist, and stormed back inside. For the first time since I moved here, Karen was silent. No snide comments, no threats, no more power. And my flag? Still waving. Karen thought she could win, but in the end, she only humiliated herself. The HOA turned against her. The neighbors saw her true colors. And my flag? Still waving. But this isn't over. Karen's about to make her biggest mistake yet. So what do you think? Was Karen just being petty, or is this next level unhinged? Drop your worst HOA horror stories in the comments. And don't miss part 2, because trust me, you won't believe how far she takes this. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's talk HOA nightmares.